presented by Under Armour and Sleeper Fantasy. Welcome to Light Years. Andy, we got a special guest today.
Let's go. I'm ready.
I mean, it's debatable where he's larger royalty, the Bay Area or Sacramento. So, perfect timing before the in-season tournament clash from the Athletic. Anthony Slater, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great because I'm the game tomorrow, or I guess Tuesday, is in Sacramento. First of all, I have like fire on my my logo. This is great, and I'm going to be a great guest by letting you know I actually am in a sleeper fantasy football league, and my team went off today, so. It's good for your branding.
You got Jalen Hurts? Is that what it was?
I don't. All my skill guys went off. My QBs were okay. CJ Stroud. So,
he's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is crazy. How about
Holmes and Stroud?
Bryce Young, CJ Stroud conversation.
It reminds me of Anthony Edwards and James Wiseman. It truly is. What a special one.
I knew you were going to go there.
I could. You did it. It couldn't. What a special one to pick.
I don't think you can. Come on. You're not going to put that on Bryce Young 10 games into his career just yet. It's a little premature on that one.
Is it?
I don't know. You see Christian McCaffrey go from the Panthers to the Niners and turn into an MVP. I'm putting it on the Panthers right now a little bit. So.
They had his family in the stands and they were wearing Alabama.
Yeah, that's just never a good sign.
Not a great sign.
We hate the organization. Sign. We're pulling out his throwback. He hasn't even finished his rookie year. What's up, man? So did you go to the Draymond press conference today?
No, I did family stuff today, but I tuned in. I'll just say that. I can kind of link in and hear when I need to, and I heard it.
Was any of what he said surprising?
No, of course not. I mean, I could have, not necessarily scripted it because he'll go various different directions and then do like the kind of the repetitive nature of it. But sure. No, I mean, look, he wasn't going to come out and apologize to Rudy Gobert. Was anyone expecting that? Or
nope.
If anyone uses the word regret to him, he'll always shoot that down. Like the idea, and a lot of athletes do this, right? The idea that they would regret anything. No, and I said it at the time, but like there was people in the locker room that night that were like, I've seen them upset with Draymond ejections or Draymond technicals or Draymond situations, and certainly Draymond punches. I know they've been very upset with. They were kind of like, hey, look, he came to Klay Thompson's back. Like, wish he may have maybe it was like a 3-second headlock instead of the 9-second drag to the ground, and obviously like they didn't like that they missed him the last 5 games, but this didn't feel like some crisis, more than just like, man, wish he was around.
They're just never. I mean, team's kind of in a crisis. They're 8-9. They lost 6 games in a row. Lost a bunch of games at home. A couple winnable games. Could have used them on defense. They're just like whatever.
No doubt.
Same old Draymond.
Into those he maybe if he plays the rest of that Cleveland game, which by the way was the type of ejection I think that upsets them more when he's he gets the early one when he's just jamming with the ref over here, and then he's kind of just doing some stuff he doesn't need to with Mitchell. And he gets tossed. Like that's the one I think that upsets him more. But to your point, look, he punched a teammate in preseason last year. You may have heard of this, and then they gave him a 4-year, $100 million extension. Like, why would he be like, I need to change behavior at this point? He at least acknowledged, like, the league is going to punch me more than others. Like, I kind of need to take that into account a little bit.
What a guy. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of Draymond. This team is a rough watch. I know you're watching the Kings a bunch, so they got him up there. I was joking with Sam before the game. I was like, man, it's got to be great covering the Kings. Got to be such a fun vibe covering the Kings versus you watch this Warriors team right now day in, day out. It's rough.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit more pressure. Like last season's Kings was like, it was just such this, dream season.
Out of nowhere. Yeah.
This year
they
went 2-4, and there was like a little criticism early. It was like the first time, like some of the Mike Brown, like rotation choices were even being questioned. I was like, oh, like I had never seen a head coach who had 100% approval rating. And last year, Mike Brown actually did. So a little bit more pressure around here this year, but Fox looks great. I mean, we don't need to actually get into the Kings because I think your general point is, you sound pretty miserable watching the Warriors. Is that what you're trying to say?
So the broader point is we can acknowledge Draymond basically hasn't played this year. I think I looked at it, it's like 20-ish% of their total minutes. Like obviously the games he played, they went 5-2.
And he looks good. really good.
So, like, okay, so in theory, he comes back. We'll get to see who they really are. But just watching him, it really does just look like Steph and a bunch of dudes who are either over the hill or maybe not that good in general. And it's like, Draymond's going to help them, but like, it's not like you're adding in your prime LeBron to this team, you know? Like, that's kind of where I'm at with this roster, where I'm like, I don't know where they can really go with this.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're getting kind of old. I think some of these losses have been concerning from the fact of it's like, they play the 2 Minnesota games, the 2 Thunder games. Like, those teams just look better. Younger, fresher, on the rise. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander down the stretch, like, they can't contain him. He is winning it for them. Obviously the Chet Holmgren thing. But we kind of, like, this era was going to have this type of endpoint. And I think we're a little bit seeing that. You're seeing it with Klay. I mean, Wiggins, he could rediscover a groove, but they've kind of gone all in on an older roster, which in a lot of ways the players that matter kind of wanted this type of roster.
Sure.
And it'll be on them to not only stay healthy but prove that using the smarts and IQ in the way they built it, that can still win at the highest level. And I'd probably predict it flames out, maybe similarly. The thing is, this season kind of feels to me similarly to last year on, like, from a flawed perspective on where I think they'll finish in the West perspective. The only thing is they keep saying how, like, great the chemistry is behind the scenes and how much different it feels than last year, which, that can be true. But regardless, when the ball tips off, like, you kind of still feel like the same level of team.
Yep. Yeah, they're just because when you watch the amount of turnovers, the lack of secondary scoring, shot making,
the ability to stay in front of anyone who
matters.
Yeah.
Even Wiggins can't defend, and he's kind of your best defender by far out of the guys who plays big minutes. Chippy too is on and off, right? The kid just can't defend anywhere, and then the Chris Paul move, which in a vacuum, Chris Paul has worked because he's been actually good in my opinion. But then you play him 30 minutes next to Steph, and it's like, dude, what do you expect? I don't know what you're supposed to expect. You play him next to Steph so much, and then you put Klay as the third guard who also can't defend. And now you just got a whole bunch of dudes that can't defend, and Draymond's only playing, like Sam said, 20% of the season. And it's exactly the same as last year. How much different do you think this team is going to be when it comes down to it?
It's actually really impressive what they did 2 years ago defensively. Remember Mike Brown's the defensive coordinator that season.
Mm-hmm.
And Poole was like they went 18-2 to start with the number one defense in the league with Poole
28-6 before Klay came back.
Yeah. That was a really good Draymond defensive season, and Looney, I would say maybe even at the time he's gotten a little less switchable, right? Bigger and I think better inside. But like, you got Otto Porter lineups and Bielitsa lineups. Like, yeah, those guys help, but like they're not, plus level defenders. They're just smart. So to go second in the league in defense that year and then do what they did in the playoffs, obviously you suddenly had Andrew Wiggins, who turned into like Kawhi Leonard for a month. Like, that was kind of insane when you look back on it. So I think there's just some of that where this is their personnel. It's kind of difficult to be.
It does feel like you spent all of last year trying to chase what you had in 2022, and maybe the takeaway is that 2022 is more the outlier, and this is more who they are. Like, Wiggins' entire career is what it is. For 3 months, he lived up to the number one pick hype, but more often than not, like, he's fine, but not a second option on a title team wing, which he was for a couple months there.
Yeah, and I do. I mean, like, the secondary scoring, I think, has been the biggest issue. I mean, that stat that it took them 12 games to get somebody else besides Steph for 20 in a game.
Yeah, can't believe we talked about that for a month. Can't believe that was talked about for a month.
It was just one of those stats that was so it exemplified the problem. Yeah. So much, I thought. And then, obviously the Klay issue is, you guys might want to talk about it, but
I was just gonna say that leads us to Wiggins and Klay. Who's been worse? Who's been more of a headache? Who's the guy? Who's gonna get traded?
It's like two sides of the same coin. Like, one guy wants to be that guy and has all the like intangibles, but like his body, like, he just isn't anymore. And the other guy, it's like classically aloof, right? Like, you think he's good enough, but he doesn't do it. So
Yeah, I think Wiggins had a tough summer. Wiggins broke his ribs in that Lakers series, Game 5, which he said was like a 6 to 8 week injury. I remember walking out of Staples Center with him the night they got eliminated, and he was like, "Yeah, if this was regular season, I'd miss 6 to 8 weeks." So he's like, that was 2 months of recovery essentially in the offseason. I think he played very much. I think in the past he's been a guy who it's like don't have to do that much off the court, and you kind of just arrive to camp in shape. And I think he's getting, we all know like the different ages and how you age. Like I think he's kind of getting to the point of his career, like you kind of better do a little bit more in the summer. And then, like to me, I actually think, especially lately, like the mindset from him has been there, the activity level has been there, but like until recently, the shot was just like as broken as I've seen it from him. The handle, he kept getting ripped. Like I remember Eric Gordon ripping him on opening night. Sure. Some of that. So I would say, if you actually look at like lineup data, like he's cratered all their lineups for like a couple of weeks. So I would actually say he has been more detrimental. But I would say he's kind of figuring it out some, where Klay, he has also had a couple of decent games lately, but he's been kind of the bigger problem recently, I would say. And then we can get to his mindset, but it's predictable, right? I mean, it's the same thing with Draymond, where I always think everyone with most star level NBA players, like a lot of times their biggest strength is their biggest weakness. And like what made Klay so great forever was like the stubbornness, the belief, like, I am, like, I don't care if Kevin Durant's coming here. Like I ain't sacrificing my shot attempts. Sure. Are staying the same. The audacious shots, like, yeah, when he's banging, 4 in a row of those and going on a whatever run in Oracle Arena forever, nobody's like, well, should you have taken that shot, Klay?
Yeah, right.
That's the same dude who's doing it now. And it's who you love for a decade, and it's why Steve Kerr's staying with him. But like that's who he is, so that's how he's going to age.
Some point though, is there Sam thinks that one of Steve Kerr or Klay are not going to end up being on the team this season. I don't know if I agree with that, but at some point, is there going to be guys, we've got to get some of these younger guys some run. It's not that Moody and Kuminga have had amazing starts to the seasons, but Podziemski looks awesome. At some point, there's got to be a reining back. No, or are they just going to ride this thing?
Well, I mean, I think you'll see it in like little mini versions of it. I mean, you saw Moody start the other night. Although, what did he finish at? Like 17 minutes. And they'll be edging of it, but the reality is, like, they are committed to riding this run out. They showed that in the offseason. And I get it. I don't know. I mean, I understand the criticism of it, but I also understand Steve Kerr going like, look, he's Klay Thompson. Like, I'm going to be patient with him. I'm going to start him every night. That's just what I'm going to do. And I'm going to go down with Klay Thompson. And if I go down, I got 4 rings already, and a lot of reasons because of him. He's obviously one of the reasons. So, like, I don't know, like from a, like, do you bench him? Like, you know how difficult that would be to do?
Well, you can't come back from that. So, like, I understand it's like the nuclear option. Once you do it, you do it. There's no going backwards. So you don't do it until it's like abundantly clear. But I think you're bringing up what I think is a more interesting conversation, which is Mike Dunleavy. Let's say Draymond comes back, cleans up their defense, because they're, I want to say 15th in the league. Like, they're very middle of the road, and we know they're subpar when Draymond's on the court. Let's say that turns this team into what they were last year, which is a 5, 6, 7 seed. So they're not really a contender, but they're like on the outside look. They're a player away is the best way to put it. And if this was Bob Myers, I think we could all feel comfortable saying unlikely he's going to make the big move, because that's not who he is. He's more of a stability guy. Dunleavy, I don't really know what to think. Like, what do the Warriors do if Steph and Draymond kind of push themselves into that, like, we're dangerous, and if you get us one extra player, we might, the West isn't that good. We could run the table, that type of thing. Like, is this actually on the table? Or to your point, is it like, this is your team, we'll ride it out, everyone expires in the offseason, we'll figure it out?
I think this profiles as an aggressive year for them at the deadline. And I would probably even say that if Bob Myers was still around. Okay. Bob Myers made the D'Angelo Russell Wiggins trade. Now that wasn't a go for it title team, but that was a big midseason swing. Sure. And it just they I know the Chris Paul Jordan Poole move did not happen in the middle of a season, but that was a sign of this kind of more
setting
urgent,
yourself up to have optionality, as I like to say. Right?
Yes, but also just like the urgency of the moment.
Sure.
They understand that was much more of an all-in move, right? They actually added a 2030 first rounder to that. So once you kind of start chipping away, they sent a.
That's right.
Andy
That's
looks.
right. I forgot.
Concerned that they added that.
Well, it is concerning, but I forgot. I was like, "Holy shit, that did happen."
It's not like a real first round. Well,
it has a chance. It'll depend on I think it's. Gosh, I should know this. But I think it's like maybe lottery protected. I actually think it might be top 20 protected. But regardless, that's an asset. And that just kind of
frees flexibility. So
yes. It to me indicates their mindset, and but I will say I wouldn't expect anything soon. It's definitely a team that they always talk about sample sizes on their lineup data, and behind the scenes, it's always talking about wait. I've always heard January is a time that is when you really start, not even just them, but league wide, kind of assessing, where do you go, and that's. There's an eject button that teams hit out there too, right? Which is the sell move, and I don't think they're going to necessarily sell, but I do. I think they'll be in a lot of conversations. And you heard that prior to free agency, into free agency, and obviously when they made the Chris Paul move was more than maybe even in the Myers era. You'd be like, dude, they're the league. The Warriors name gets out there when they talk to a bunch of people across the league. And They were doing that a bunch then. And I'm just predicting, I'll guess that will happen again January, February.
So do you think because that makes sense. Any trade that happens November, 27th is a desperation trade. They're not, that's not happening, right? It's going to be trade deadline season.
Would be sick.
Do you get the impression? Because I feel like Dunleavy is the most interesting person in this organization right now, just because everyone, I know who Klay Thompson is as a player, right? You're walking me through it. None of that's surprising. He's still very much a wild card to every Warrior fan at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's relatively cutthroat. Really the Poole thing. I've talked to him for years about Poole. He loved Poole. He was big in on the Poole draft pick, and when Poole would go through his struggles, he would be one of the people that was context matters. Got to look at the situation for a young guy. Hey, he's still a 20-point scorer. I think to the day of the trade, really remained kind of a Poole backer. And
was he his friend? Was he were they friends, or were he just no? Because I'm asking because did he have to go to Poole and say all right? I said we weren't going to trade you, but you're gone.
Friend is a little too strong of a term, but it's an executive that I think was there was mutual respect between the two. I mean, I think Jordan knows Mike's belief in him, and belief in
he was one of the louder voices in Poole being drafted by them.
But I'm asking because to get down
not
to
even
it,
drafted, but played, which was a conversation a lot. Get him on the court,
which was the right call. But it's very much because he's going to be the guy that sits in front of someone or in front of Chris Paul. I'm asking because he's going to be sitting in front of Chris Paul and saying we're going to have to package your contract, right? To your point, Slater, if he's going to be cutthroat, if he's going to be the guy, because in my opinion, the best option is we just got to get Chris Paul's contract, Kuminga, and a pick, and just see what we can get. I don't think moving Klay, it makes you're not going to do that. Wiggins' contract makes a lot of sense. I still think it's worth it. So just logically, it'll come down to who wants that Chris Paul contract. Is he going to sit in front of him and tell him dude, we believed in you, but fuck, there's someone we got to get. You're gone.
I think he could. I think if you can't do it, you can't do the job really well.
That's why Bob quit, right? So
yeah. It's delicate. It's why they want to keep any conversations completely behind the scenes until the moment that the decision's been made. That's what they did with Poole. He had his press conference 3 days before they traded Poole and was like, we're not trading Jordan.
Yeah, that's right.
And then, but I remember talking to Poole's side of the situation, and they were appreciative of the transparency. I was expecting maybe them to be a little bit more that was, can you believe they dropped the hammer like that? No, I will say, I think there was a excitement from Jordan Poole for the situation he was going to, where I don't necessarily if you're doing it, as you said, to a 19-year veteran who's runs the Players Association at times, Chris Paul.
It's a little different. Yeah.
It is, and I mean that's where I think Mike has a lot of good relationships across the league. He's respected. He knows everybody, and I do think that'll help. But there's a lot of opinions. That, we're talking only about Mike, Joe Lacob, Kirk Lacob, Steve Kerr, Steph Curry, like Draymond Green. There's a whole lot of opinions in the room that need to be taken into account, and we'll see. But I do think they'll be in the mix come January, February on personnel moves potentially.
You mentioned Steph. I think he gets undermentioned this sort of thing because I don't think they would make a big move without his approval. Would you agree with me there?
Yeah. He talks. I mean, Mike's even said like if they play golf together. I know at times, but Steph is not, Wizard of Oz. Trying to direct every type of move behind the scenes, but he would not love it, particularly from a Mike Dunleavy who just took over the main seat. If this summer they traded for Chris Paul and called Steph and were like, hey, guess what? We've already made this move. Like that was something that was discussed and approved clearly.
Hey Steph, do you want to trade Klay? What do you think Steph's going to say?
Well, I mean, that's you're joking about it, but like, if it does come down to that, that's a serious, private, important conversation that would have to happen.
Oh yeah, that's Mike saying, "I'll take the bullet. Everyone can blame me. You can claim you never said anything about it."
Nobody's gonna believe that. Nobody's gonna believe that. Also, I don't even understand why you would. To me, that move doesn't really make sense. I don't know, Slater, unless you think otherwise. I don't know from your opinion.
I think it's all contextual. I
don't think it makes sense without any context. It just doesn't. They're not going to give him a max anyway.
Do you think it doesn't? Do you think trading Klay doesn't make sense from a basketball value standpoint, or do you think it doesn't make sense from the legacy, the ride it out with this type of team?
I think both. I think he's still, even though I think he's been bad this season, I generally can't stand watching him this season. I do think he's still good for this team. They still kind of need him, unless they extend him for a max contract. And even then, what does that even matter? But it's like
max is not happening. Both sides, let me just put it. Both sides understand it's not going to be a max.
What do you think Klay understands? You think he understands that? But I just don't.
Let me just say, Klay Thompson understands it's not going to be a max contract. Now there may be there can be a gap within a non-max contract, but
sure,
yes, it's no, won't be.
I think I'm more open to trading Klay. But everything's in context of who are you acquiring and what does it mean. He does make $13 million more than Chris Paul, so that it's easier to match contracts that way. You could argue
$43 million.
You could argue like Klay and I don't know Kuminga. That's $50 million. That opens up a lot more options than Chris Paul, and Chris Paul has been better in a small role than Klay. But my general perspective on it is this is all kind of BS conversation for another 2 months until we see who's actually available. Like, is Pascal Siakam available, or is Masai Ujiri going to do the same shit he's done the last 8 trade deadlines? Right?
Do they want Zach LaVine? Right?
Like, right. Do they everything's invalid. And
I mean, LaVine's a good name for you to bring up because obviously he feels like the most available guy now, but also I think he's got 3 years and 120 million left, something like that. I mean, it's 40 plus. That is untenable for this Warrior situation where more than ever they the future money is very concerning to them. They're pretty adamant second apron is a no-go. And that,
do you actually buy them on that, or does that feel like a leverage point?
Yes, I buy them on it because it does limit your team, freezing of draft picks, mid-level exception, can't get buyout.
What does freezing draft picks and mid-level exception really mean? You can't trade your pick in 7 years. They don't want to trade their pick in 7 years. You can't use your mid-level. You're paying $800 million in tax. You weren't going to use it to begin with. I'm not actually convinced. Hear me out on this one. I'm not convinced.
There's also the money thing, by the way. It's
that's the bigger one. That's at a certain point, you don't want to pay that much in tax unless you're actually going to recoup it in playoff revenue
for a first round team, which is that's what this team is right now. I wouldn't
do it for Zach LaVine because he probably doesn't move the needle enough, and so you're just paying the tax for the sake of it to get to the second round which you were going to do with this roster, and all you're doing is limiting your future flexibility. I don't know. I'm skeptical on the second apron stuff right now.
You know, and again, maybe they're messaging out as an excuse a little bit because this is a way to finally suppress some of the tax while also saying, hey, I'm not being cheap, I'm being practical from a roster building standpoint. But I will just say, like, they are like second apron, like, no thanks. So that means
they're not trying to pull the Suns. Yeah, they're not trying to just be like, we'll take that player, but we're going to give you nothing for him.
Well, just look at the way that the minimum and the Suns were doing every minimum that the Suns signed. That they did 2 years with the player option on the back end, which not only kind of ties you potentially to the player beyond, but it doubles your tax bill. And anyone that's deep in the tax, like the Warriors were like, well, that's a wild thing to do. It just like costs you way more money. But the Suns were just going, whatever, we don't care. The Warriors were not doing that. So
and now the Suns look.
Yeah, look, you can criticize it. Now, there's the other thing when you talk to people across the league, they're like, yeah, we'll see how the Suns feel about their whole situation.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other part of it where I'm like,
Warriors are doing this for a while.
I don't necessarily hate the Bradley Beal move because they paid nothing for it, but they are limited in terms of how they can get out of it. So that's not great.
There's still a protection of the Warriors' future, and it's not. We understand it's not full 2 timelines anymore. They've scrapped a large chunk of that, including the biggest, anchor to the whole thing. But it's still they're still not just like 2027 does not matter. We don't care. Like there is protection of what's the next decade.
It's too bad the players aren't. It's too bad the players aren't. The younger guys just haven't been.
And Franz Wagner, right? And Sengun and.
Do you want to talk about Kuminga and Moody for a second? Maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Like, okay, so those would
Pajemski.
At this point, are those guys just kind of like maybe, or we'll trade them type of thing? Because I feel like part of the Wiseman trade was it's not working, and we're not gonna give you an extension, so let's get whatever the fuck we can get for you right now.
Yeah, I mean, the Wiseman thing, like, it had just kind of reached its logical end at that point.
Sure.
The money he was making this upcoming season was too much, right? They saved a chunk of tax, that whole thing. Kuminga and Moody still help. Now, like, I don't think they're untouchable, particularly, come deadline if Kuminga is the swing piece that gets something done that they just feel like this is such a, big puzzle piece type move. Like I said, I don't believe they're untouchable, but I mean, I think to varying degrees, both of them and even Pajemski and Trace Jackson Davis, if you want to go to a lower level, are developing enough to where they're like, there isn't frustration with like all these young guys are, dragging us down right now. I mean, I would even say for you two, you seem to be like, play them more, play these guys more. So I don't think they're must moves, just like I don't think they're untouchable.
Yeah, I think the Kuminga, but I do think the Kuminga one is still like he's not really getting any better, and he's not getting the chance to mess up. We had this conversation last year. It's just over and it's the same stuff. He's not this great player that's good enough to break into the rotation just because he's super smart or whatever. He can't really shoot that great, right? Like he's just not going to break in and steal 30 minutes. Kind of like what Pajemski has done, where I don't think coming into the season they were ever going to play him, but he's just kind of stolen Corey Joseph's spot. Now part of that is Kojo sucks, but I think Kuminga is just never.
He's like stealing Moody's minutes, which to your point, like he's just playing himself into the rotation.
Kuminga's not. I don't think he's good enough to do that. I don't think moving forward that is. And then what are you going to pay the guy? I mean, shit. Does beside Jerry like him? Can we move it?
The trouble with Kuminga is like he does possess some of like the tantalizing skills that they need, right? Individual defense, wing defense, big, diving at the rim. There's been spurts of games, especially when he's out there with Chris Paul, where he'll like run, get on a fast break, kick up, even the other night, right? The start of the fourth quarter against the Spurs, he gets to the rim a couple times. He has that burst, 12 points in like 5 minutes, where he plays like they're like, ooh, that's the type of weapon that would really help this team. But the trouble is, like, he's not a robot. He still views himself in the long term as a potential like two-way scoring wing that can handle the ball, that can play make. They don't need him to do that on this team. It usually, it has gone badly. One of their Thunder losses, that game changed when he had like 2 or 3 straight turnovers in a third quarter stretch where he's trying to do stuff they don't necessarily want him to do. But you also understand from his perspective, like, look, I'm young. I need to like explore this. And, these are conversations we've had. But so I'm not necessarily there of like, oh, Kuminga he'll never get it. But it is a really delicate and difficult coaching job to fit him in, because I do see times where, and even last year, there was like a month and a half stretch. He was awesome when Wiggins disappeared for a while. And then he was, dragged to the bench in the playoffs. So I don't know. It's kind of tough.
Yeah.
You're out. I can tell you're out on it.
I'm not. But
look, if Steve Kerr is going to coach the way that he coaches, and they're going to play the way that they play, what do you expect a kid to do? Because I agree with you on the he could do things that they kind of need, but they're never going to play different. You know what I mean? And you could say that for Steve and for Steph, Draymond. Like, those guys aren't going to do things differently. Steph isn't going to shoot the ball for 7 minutes sometimes, because that's just kind of how he plays basketball. And I just think they're never really going to care until Kuminga figures out, oh, I actually am going to be Aaron Gordon, because I'm never going to be good enough to score 25 points efficiently. You know what? Kuminga doesn't know that. He has no idea.
No, he shouldn't. He shouldn't know that.
Exactly. He should go to Houston. Like, actually, not Houston. I always make this, but like, he should just be Aaron Gordon, because Aaron Gordon sucked in Orlando. Jeremy Grant sucked in Detroit. Like, that's just what you got to do, and then you figure out all of a sudden you're just a role player, right? Kuminga don't know that yet.
Yes, but it's still like, from a asset value standpoint, from the front office perspective, and even from a coaching perspective, it's still like, you need to, like, that is still, it exists within him to help on certain nights. Like, you need to try. You don't just want to, like, all right, Kuminga. Like, the Wiseman situation to me is much more different.
Yeah.
He's not playing for Detroit. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
Like, he just wasn't good.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And anyway.
Let's end it here. In-season tournament, Tuesday, Sacramento. Will you be sitting courtside next to Vivek?
No, that'll be like Vlade, Peja, maybe 50 Cent. Sometimes he does love to put celebrities there. 50 Cent's like a partner for the Kings.
Wow. Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
But yeah, so no, it will not be me. I'm an objective journalist. I'm going to be in my press seat. Hoping for high level drama, because these two teams, particularly in Golden One Center, play high drama games, and I love that the setup is pretty much potentially, winner moves on.
Wow, it is winner moves on.
So the one thing I want to throw out there is I don't think it gets. They hate Domantas Sabonis. That's the one thing I've got from Looney and Draymond. They think he gets off a little more than your average big man against them.
There's varying levels of dislike for certain players across the league.
Sure.
Particularly in the front court, as you're talking, particularly from the power forward. Looney's really nice. I very rarely hear Looney just bad mouthing people. But I wouldn't put Domantas high on the list. I wouldn't.
No. Okay.
Yeah. There's many others. I think that he plays a physical brand, but I think they respect the physicality. It's not like an easy night at the office. He does something like kind of
all bigs do the no one's looking, I'm gonna elbow you thing, and I think he's pretty good at that. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just Draymond. Draymond no longer gets away with it, but that's his thing too. So
yeah, well, I think Draymond kind of doesn't mind that type of player. He'll get into it with those type of players. But it's I don't think there's you're being cheap. And Looney's the same. I mean, Looney does all these little tricks and elbows and bumps.
All right, who's the chat? We'll end you on this. The chat's asking. Who you said he's not highest on the list. Who's highest on the list of players who get under skin?
Besides Chris Paul.
Well, there's some level of trust I need to maintain by not just listing.
Of course.
But I will say Chris Paul used to be high on the list, as you mentioned. And then I don't feel like I'm, breaking any news here. Rudy Gobert is pretty high up there. So I'll give you those.
There we go. Okay, Slater, we appreciate you.
All right, fellas.
Great evening.
Thanks, man. Have fun tomorrow or Tuesday. All right,
Tuesday.
Slates.
Yeah. I've lost track of time because they're not playing games often anymore.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, I need this weekend.
goodness.
Although that Eagles game, I really thought we were gonna get the perfect setup for next week.
I know. All right, Sam. Let me pay the bills real quick. All right, and then we'll get to our last segment.
Mhm.
So, this week's Light Years podcast is brought to you. Bring it up when you get a chance. Sleeper Fantasy. Sleeper is a fantasy sports plus real money gambling app focused on bringing people together, so you can make some money on some player props. Tonight, if you had taken Devin Booker and Jason Tatum overs on points, rebounds, and assists, who are two of my favorite players in the league to watch right now, Sam. Two of my favorite players in the league right now. If you took the overs on them, points, rebounds, assists, would have made some money. So if you think you know basketball, try to turn your basketball knowledge into real money with the Sleeper app, the ultimate fantasy sports app that can turn game day into payday. Just download the Sleeper app, pick more or less on your favorite players with more stats than any other daily fantasy app. Just to choose two or more of your favorite players from pregame or live. Use the promo code LIGHTYEARS. You'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. All right. And as you all know, our title sponsor this season is Under Armour. Light Years podcast brought to you by Under Armour. Steph Curry makes you believe you can do anything, and the Curry 11s are specifically designed with ultimate balance, grip, and stability to allow everyone to do their thing. New generations of ball players, as we're seeing, are coming up and showing the basketball world that the old rules do not apply. The future is exciting, fast, positive, and hungry. The NBA season, rock with your favorite player and rep his shoes on and off the court. Did you know? We all know De'Aaron Fox rocks the shoes. Did you know Brandon Pajemski has rocked the Curry brand shoes every game this season? Sam, your guy.
My guy.
Your guy. So the Curry 11s are perfect for both the committed and casual ballers. The UA Warp Tech makes the shoe feel like it was designed for your feet, locked in no matter what you do on the court. Stop in your tracks with dual density UA flow cushioning and traction and emergency brake you don't even notice. Steph's 11th signature shoe steps into the second decade of his sneaker career, pulling colorway inspiration from the wonders of a positive and modernized future. On and off the court, take these kicks with you and leave the scrimmage, rep UA wherever you go. So do your thing, change the game. The Curry 11 Future Curry, available now at currybrand.com. And this week's Light Years podcast is brought to you by AG1. So listen. Sam knows this. I'm getting married next month, mid-December. And a part of what I am trying to do with about 2.5 weeks to go is to make sure I'm in the best physical shape.
Zero chance.
The best physical shape that I can do. Want to be able to wake up energized. Want to be able to get the prebiotics and digestive enzymes in my body, right? So I feel very good for the next month. And that's why I have been using AG1. So Sam put this trick on for me. I've been making these before I go to sleep at night so I can just go ahead and drink it in the morning. And when I started drinking AG1 daily, it's been a change, man. I feel good. Look how energized I am every single day. It's because AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement, supports your body's universal needs like gut optimization, stress management, and immune support. Since 2010, AG1 has led the future of foundational nutrition, continuously refining their formula to create a smarter, better way to elevate your baseline health. AG1 is the supplement I trust to provide to support my body needs daily. So if you want to take ownership of your health, starts with AG1. Try AG1. Get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/lightyears. That's drinkag1.com/lightyears. Check it out.
You know, my dad told me your energy level's way better on the pod, and he speculated it's because the team's better. And, time goes by and I went, not so fast, old man. The team's absolutely not any better. It's the AG1. It is, You get your digestive tract in line, things feel better. You're a little lighter on your feet. You're in a better mood. 2022 Andy eating fried food, trans fats, bad mood on the pod, doesn't want to talk, mostly just wants to get it over with so he can go sit on the toilet. 2023 Andy, AG1, system's clean, feeling great, potting like an all-star.
That's perfect. Wow. Done.
It's just a fact. By the way, I have AG1 every morning. Feel great about it. It is a great product. I would not sell you guys otherwise. I actually like that all our sponsors are stuff that I use without anyone telling me. I have AG1 on the regular. I gamble incessantly on Sleeper, and I wear some Under Armour.
You do that too. I know we've had some. We had Manscaped. So we go. I'm a big Manscaped guy. My friends love Manscaped. We've had them on. I think we're done with them for the next few weeks. But anyway, that was good. That was good. Well done.
Are you excited for this Kings game? Like, I want to talk about this a little bit.
Yep.
How do you feel about the in-season tournament? I feel like do you have the in-season tournament energy? Do you have the vibe? Are you feeling it? Are you an in-season tournament guy?
I'm not. Are you?
Wow, what a hater. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, I am a little bit of a hater.
Obviously, I'm in. Yeah. I think it's fun. I think it helps that I went to the game that the Gobert chokeout happened, so I got kind of like hyped on it. But I'm a fan of any basketball where everyone's into it, right? Like, and I think Tuesday's going to be pretty electric. That's my theory. I think the Kings, like, can we just be straight? Like, they don't know how to act. They have the most like little brother energy about the Bay Area ever. They want to beat the Warriors so badly, and they might, to be honest. They really might. But that makes it a little more fun, knowing that if they beat the Warriors, they eliminate them from this tournament. Makes it a little more fun, and I think the pride comes out a little bit, right? Like, if nothing else, you're like, I'm not going to hear it from you,
I guess like I don't think any of that would be different if it wasn't an in-season tournament. But I'm just kind of picking nits. I do think like a lot of teams have tried harder. I think objectively that's true. So I can't argue against that fact. It does seem like a lot of teams are trying harder. I don't know what for. maybe it's just a spirit of competition, which I think Sam is as a cynical. I'm getting more cynical as I get older. It's like, to me, it's like, it's kind of sad that they have to put this gimmick out for players to try harder in the regular season.
But yeah, you know what they're all thinking though. Like, they're all like, what if this is? I want to win the first one. What if it's like a thing? Then I can say
I don't even know if that's true. Really?
I think so. I think. Oh, you don't think LeBron's going to run propaganda if he wins the first in-season cup?
I mean, he'll run propaganda off doing anything. So
if the Lakers get eliminated, LeBron will be like, "Yeah, it's not a real tournament. It doesn't matter. I don't care about you." That sort of thing.
Yeah, right.
But if he wins, he'll be like, "Jordan never won an in-season cup."
I mean, just
like Jordan never won a tournament in Disneyland or whatever. Like, I think there's. I don't know if it'll catch on, but I think everyone wants to win the first one just as like I want it, I'm better than you.
I think that they brought out the spirit of competition in a way through this in-season tournament. So I think that was the vehicle for it. I think there are a lot of other vehicles for that. Sure. I think you can do different things. I know people have brought up, like in the All-Star game, I think the Elam ending worked the first few times. I don't know like how much people care anymore, but like that's a gimmick that brings up the spirit of competition. Because
it's a good analogy. Yeah.
Right. Because you're just like, I don't think it's about the Elam ending. I just think you just got to find ways to make these guys care more. And whether that be $500K, you know what I mean? Like maybe LeBron doesn't care, but Max Christie does. And so it's just like, things that we might not care about somehow get these guys to give a fuck. And isn't that always like, I saw Nate Duncan tweet, and we've talked about this. This is the last regular season that's truly people have tried hard. It was like 2016, right? Obviously, because that's when the Warriors mattered and made regular season matter. And really the regular season has been a joke for 6-7 years since. Yeah. So it kudos to Adam Silver. I guess I'm kind of coming around to your point, is like, kudos to him just to get these dudes to care. But at the same time, I'm like, isn't that kind of sad? That we got.
No, I mean, you're right, but like, look, dude, if the Warriors get to the finals, which like I don't know how they would, but like let's say they get to the finals and
But
Saturday,
they could still, right? To be fair, they could.
If they win against Sacramento,
Okay.
and they have the right point differential, they have a reasonable shot at advancing. And then advancing in the single elimination, it's just kind of like we'll see what happens, right? Single elimination basketball is fun, man. It's a different feel than regular season basketball. Shout out our guy Sheed with the Warriors World Tournament. Single elimination brings out some fun stuff, you know? So let's say they get to the in-season tournament finals, and it's in Vegas, and it's Saturday, December 9th. You not going to be excited about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be locked in.
It'll be a good time. And then right afterwards, you can be like, all right, I'm going to sleep for the next 6 weeks until Dunleavy makes a trade. But, at least then you're going to be excited about it.
Yeah. I mean, the Warriors need to be locked in to every game. And
Draymond they're not good enough to not be locked in. So
yeah. Draymond will be back. I mean, talk about electric, dude. Like that, Draymond will be back. They I don't know if they should win the game. They should win the game. Like they need to win that game. They need to get the vibes back. They need to win that game. Sac's kind of a way for them to. I wouldn't say they own Sac, but Sac feels like a team that when I see them against Minnesota OKC. Slate's mentioned this about how like those two teams are just better. I don't get that feeling when they play the Kings. I don't get a feeling that. Yeah, the Kings are going to be just better than the Warriors. Now, they may beat them by 20 because they make 25
No,
threes,
Kings are younger. They're more energetic. There's reasons they should beat the Warriors, but they don't have the mental edge on the – like, you can just feel it when you play them, where there's a little, like –
It's a little bit.
Like,
and
maybe that goes away on Tuesday. Maybe it does,
Yeah.
But it does feel like Draymond back, they're going to give it to him. On Tuesday night, they're going to give it to him. And this could be the type of thing that ignites the Warriors to go on a little bit of a run. Because that's what they need. After this game, they play like the Clippers 8 times in a row.
What is that?
I don't know. I don't want to see the Clippers at all. Like, not even because I think they're good. I just don't want to watch them, So.
Yeah. They're one of the harder teams to watch in the league. They really are, and they've been winning a little bit. But yeah,
I mean, the Warriors are kind of one of the harder teams to watch the league right now too. So that's not great either. But yeah, to your point, like it's just is what it is. What else we gotta get to tonight? Anything else we want to talk about? I think we hit on all the good stuff. I thought Slater was interesting there. I think the reality is this is where I'm at. I want to ask you, Andy. How do you fix the Warriors? I kind of think everything about the Warriors is like play good enough to force the front office to make a trade at the end of January. Because I don't think they're gonna make a move if this team is the 10 seed. I think if they're the 10 seed, they're gonna be like, let's just let contracts expire. But
really?
I think if they're the 5 seed, I think if you're looking at them and you're like, I don't know, man, Steph's still good. Draymond's still good. Like, they're like one player away from being able to knock off Denver. Then I think they will,
Really?
That's just, it's a gut feeling. I'm no sourcing, nothing other than that. I don't think the front office is going to make a move if this team is 24-26 and they're like a half game out of the plan. I think they're just going to be like, we're going to let these old guys embarrass themselves and call it a day.
That would be extremely disappointing, even if that were that true.
It would be extremely disappointing if they can't get this on track. So
I wouldn't be surprised if they were 24-26. I just wouldn't be surprised. Which I mean, you saw the Lakers, and if you saw the Lakers make a few moves, kind of on the margins, that really boosted that team to being a Western Conference Finals team. I would like to see this team do that. That Russell Westbrook contract is similar to what the Chris Paul contract was, right? And they got off that contract.
Klay Thompson contract.
Or the Klay Thompson contract. I don't say that. It's just those two.
Optionality.
Yeah, it's just those two. And then you've got some young pieces. Kuminga, you still got your pick. So it's like, Sam, I would be really disappointed if they were just to let it ride on a 24-26. I can't see that happening. But I would like to see them make a trade. Slater made it seem like they're going to make a trade for sure. He also made it seem like that they wouldn't move Chris Paul. Maybe sounded like actually Klay Thompson may be more. I felt like he obviously didn't want to say it, So maybe we'll hit him up. We'll hit him up off air. But I got a feeling he kind of noted like maybe Klay's, like they may be off of Klay, right? Like I gotta. It sounded like he was like.
I agree with T Dot in the chat. This is kind of the point I wanted to say here. He goes, making a move is contingent on how Steph is playing. If he looks good and the team is shit, they'll make a move. If he looks mediocre and they are shit, they'll let it ride.
Right now, he does look a little hurt.
If he's, if he's healthy and throwing up 35 a night, which he does when he's healthy, period. And he's still playing like a god. There's gonna be pressure on them. If he's spraining his ankle every other week,
I mean, he's playing through an injury right now. You can tell.
Is he injured, or is it just Chris Paul holding the ball all possession?
Imagine if Chris Paul doesn't hold the ball, he might have 45 instead of 35.
I really want to appreciate Chris Paul, but it's like this is such unwatchable basketball.
But Steph enjoys that. Isn't that kind of like a more annoying part to this though? Is that when Steph gets a pass from CP3 and makes a shot, you see how excited he is. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's just like I don't know. It feels like Steph is enjoying being.
I think he definitely is looking for ways to buy time, where he's just like, dude, I'm not trying to go 1-on-1 for 82 minutes, or sorry, 82 games, 48 minutes. Yeah. He's just looking for a reason to be like, Chris, you run the show, and I'll just hit 5 threes, and then we'll call it a day. Yeah. I'll save the Steph save you offense for when we need it.
Hey, okay, I have one last thing. I am pretty excited because. Maybe we'll get out of here on an optimistic take. Is that the team was pretty good when Draymond was playing. Mm-hmm. The team was pretty good, and you can argue that they lost a bunch of these games in a losing streak. Instead of going 0-6, Sam, do they just go 3-3? Right, with Draymond playing, like at least they go 3-3. So now instead of being 8-3, they're 11. Like we could play this fucking game all day. They're 11-6, right? Whatever. Thing is, he didn't play those games, but
I think they're 10-7 if Draymond plays. Like guaranteed, they win one more, maybe two more. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, they're fine. They're chugging along.
Right? Like I wouldn't be miserable as I am right now. I think you're a little more happy about this team, but I do think. He's got to stay on the freaking court. Like, would it surprise you if he's ejected on Tuesday playing around with Sabonis? But again, they've been good with him playing. They've been good. Now, how good, I don't know, but they've been good. So
yeah, that's the thing. We haven't even seen them play enough to have a definitive take on are they good with Draymond, or are they just kind of like last year? It's too early to tell. Okay, I say we get out of here on that. This was fun. Hopefully they give us good stuff on Tuesday. We'll be back here post-game Tuesday, post-game Thursday. And, hopefully the Niners give us some good stuff next week too. But that's a different conversation.
Yeah, we'll do it then. They got to beat the shit out of the Eagles. They better. All right.
Later, fellas.